Hello everyone and welcome to this video, which is in our Great Engine Opening series. And in this video we are going to show you something completely extraordinary, a really cool way of meeting the Modern Benoni. What's the Modern Benoni and why the black players play it? That's one important thing. So the Modern Benoni starts d4, knight f6, c4, c5, d5 and then e6. Now this is a very counter-attacking opening, big favourite of players like Michal Tal, in particular the former Yugoslavian players Albin Planic and Drasko Velirimovic. Really had a great time playing it, and more recently in England John Nunn was a really big expert in it for quite a while. What is black aiming for? Well, I'll show you just a typical line that you often get. This is one of the main theoretical lines. Takes d6, knight f3 g6, h3 bishop g7, e4 castles, bishop d3 and now b5. This is one of the main theoretical lines. And just a few things that you really notice about this. First of all, the pawn structure, incredibly unbalanced. White's got this central pawn majority. Black's got a queenside pawn majority. We've got a very weak pawn on d6. I mean, it's incredibly weak. Very big long-term weakness. What you also see is black getting his king to safety very quickly on the king side. Getting it out of the way and making sure that he's got a rook that can come to the open file and pressure this e4 pawn. And finally, this unbalancing queenside structure, full of sacrifices, c4, b5, often always happening. So you can get the sense of, the Modern Benoni player, sort of guy, sort of girl who, doesn't mind having, a big static weakness on d6, goes for quick development, king away to the centre, and then starts destabilising the white centre with queenside pushes and attacks on the open, half-open e-file. That's what a Modern Benoni player is doing. So we're going to have a look now at something quite extraordinary that I came across. I came across it when playing the black side of the Modern Benoni against Oscar on Duolingo. And if you haven't tried it, I would definitely recommend it. It's great fun. But on the fourth move, Oscar played this move against me. Well, g4, that's quite a move. Now, regular viewers of my channel will have been used to loads of g4 ideas, mostly from Crazy Leela. In particular, one idea against the Benko is really extremely dangerous for black, and I've done a few really nice videos on that, and I've seen a lot of people having a lot of success with it, including me on Chess Blitz. But what is the point of this move? Well, the point is very, very similar, of course. g4 is gaining space on the king side, and it's also a disruptive move, preparing to play g5 and inconvenience that knight on f6. Of course, it's a gambit, and the gambit, that's what we're going to be looking at in this first video. Knight takes g4, and then white plays e4. What does e4 do? Gain central space and attacks the knight on g4, to which black has to find a response. Now, I mean, I wonder whether you're already starting to sense a little bit that, this is not going to be a normal Modern Benoni for black, where black is on the front foot and attacking. This is putting black absolutely on the back foot and telling him, okay, I've got this big central advantage, your knight's on prise, you're going to have to find something to do about it. So what I'm going to start with is just an introduction to this sort of position. Afterwards, I'm going to demonstrate the ideas of the line based on some games that I played as black against various engines like Torch and Fritz 20 as well. What you'll have as study material after the whole sequence of videos has been published is all of the analysis that I've done in a Chess study. So that's how it's going to be. But what I want to concentrate on with the videos, which is what I normally try and do, is get the ideas across, and then the specific analysis, you'll see it later. Now, there's one very important line here, and that's black plays queen h4 here, defending the knight, threatening mate, and we play queen e2. So that looks as if, oh, you know, black's managed to sort of put white on the defensive there, but it's not true, because, you know, this is just very unstable. It's not supported by anything. There's not really much centre to talk about for black, and white's threatening knight f3, and then he can play rook g1 or h3, chase away the knight, develop. You know, black's come forward a little bit, but black is absolutely going to have to retreat and go back. But there's one really crucial line in this position, and that's this move knight takes f2. If this would work, then this whole line would be absolute rubbish. However, white's got something that reminds me very much of something that Gelfand fell into against Anand in a World Championship match. Probably, I think, the shortest World Championship defeats ever. Queen takes f2, queen takes e4 check, forks the king and rook. But now we've got the lovely. You might want to stop the video and just see if you can work it out. Not too difficult. And bishop f3, trapping the queen. A very nice trick indeed. So after queen e2, you know, black's got to decide, you know, what am I going to do? And I mean, essentially, you're always looking at two basic structures. You know, black can try and play it Czech Benoni style, this c5, d6, e5, known as the Czech Benoni structure, and block the center like that. Or he can try and play it Modern Benoni style and take on d5 and unbalance the pawn structure. But there's various problems with all of this, as you'll see. Just to say just a few things up front. I mean, the Modern Benoni gets an evaluation of something like, you know, 0.7, 0.8 for white. So you can imagine that, you know, even being a pawn down in this position, the engines are sort of saying, well, still pretty okay for white. And the Czech Benoni is often getting something like 1.1, 1.2. You see a lot of games in the TCEC where, you know, white just wins the white side of a Czech Benoni from a pretty normal opening. So again, you know, the engines are saying, well, in those block center positions, okay, I've lost a pawn, but there's no reason I should be worse. I was plus 1.1 before. So, you know, it's I think that's one of the things. You know, black's taken on this big positional risk with the Modern Benoni, you know, already on move 3. That's going to cost him in terms of you know, how well he stands, you know, when he's a pawn up and on the defensive as well. So let's have a look. I mean, one thing to point out is that e takes d5. I think that's actually what I did against Oscar when I first came across it. Knight f3, queen e7. And, well, the normal c takes d5 is possible, which is very similar to lots of positions we'll have a look at. I will point out, though, that the engine shows this lovely idea. Threatening to go knight d5, and after d takes e4, knight g5. We're hitting the knight on g4, and we're threatening stuff like knight d5. Extremely dangerous for black here, and well, there's loads of analysis for you in the Lee Chess study that I'll publish. So just take a look at that. But it's very interesting indeed. So the number one move really for black is to play the move knight e5. That seems quite natural. That knight's got to move anyway, and you're going to try and stop the knight from coming out to f3. But now white plays the move knight d2, and after d6, you're going knight gf3. So just getting rid of the knight there, and then there's a couple of things that black can do. The most common line here is to take and go queen e7, and then the engines play, of course, as you'd expect, the move h4. And you know, this is again a really interesting position here. It's you know, you can tell that if black plays e takes d5, c takes d5, one of the main lines, you know, black's not really going to be able to castle kingside here. I'm already launched with h4, h5 against the kingside. And well, I've got the G file open. It's going to be very, very dangerous for black. So actually in these positions, black tends to be looking to castle queen side, which is pretty unusual in the modern Benoni. And well, you're going to see the games that I've played against the engine. The engines are incredibly inventive in finding all sorts of lines for white. The other idea is to play e5, and again, the engines are saying, yeah, okay, you've got a block center, but I've got lots of space, and it's actually ends up being quite tricky for black to get free, and white's extra space seems to weigh a lot more than this pawn somehow. I had a lot of difficulties playing these positions with black. The other thing I will point out, which surprised me quite a lot, was that, for example, after e4, queen h4, queen e2, I had a game against Torch, where Torch played knight d2, and now not knight gf3, which is possible as well, but knight df3. And I went for this endgame, takes, knight c3. Actually, the engines consider that white is a tiny bit better already. And I found this ending extremely difficult to hold. The knight's threatening to come round to b5. The engines were just playing these moves like h5 and rook g1 to put pressure on the king side. And then at some stage f4 was coming as well. I mean, I didn't notice my extra pawn, and I just ended up in a terrible mess. Couple of times different endgames. So it certainly is not easy, and the engines don't think that black's any better here. In fact, it goes very, very quickly to white being slightly better. So yeah, I mean, I think that is a pretty good summary of the line. We've got we understand what a modern Benoni player is going for and why this move is so powerful. We know this key trick, which doesn't work, which makes this whole line viable. And yeah, I mean, we sort of know what we're aiming to do, right? Knight f3, knight c3. We know the typical structures that black can do, either taking on d5 for a sort of a modern Benoni setup, or d6 and e5 check Benoni. But in both cases, the engines certainly don't think white is really worse. Often much better, particularly in those block center structures. And the other very important thing is that endgames very, very often are just pretty okay for white, and actually more than that, even slightly better to start with. And I can tell you from experience of playing them, they've ended up pretty tricky. So there we are. I think I'm going to leave you like that for this first video, just with this general overview. And in the second video, I'm going to be looking at lots of lines starting from here, from games that I played against the engines, and I'll give you an idea of where I found things awkward, where I found things difficult to assess, and quite amazingly, how soon the engines felt that they were better already as white. So thanks very much indeed, and stay tuned for the next video.